Good evening and welcome to Noir Intrigue. It's my honour to be here with you tonight. Before we begin, allow yourself a moment to get comfortable. Let your body settle wherever you are and gently close your eyes if that feels right. Take a slow, deep breath in and then exhale softly, releasing the day. Once more, breathing in slowly and deeply, and breathing out, allowing your shoulders to relax. In this space, there's nothing you need to do and nowhere you need to go. You don't need to stay awake or follow every word. Simply listen, breathe naturally, and allow this calm, soothing story to guide you gently toward rest and sleep. The rain began quietly, without announcement. At first it was almost unnoticeable. A faint change in the sound of the air outside, as though the world had softened its voice. Then gradually it became clearer, a steady, patient rhythm settling into place, drop after drop meeting the ground, the windows, the still surfaces of the evening. Inside, everything was warm. The room held its temperature gently, neither too hot nor too cool, just enough to allow the body to relax without thinking about it. The air felt calm, settled, unmoving, as though it had been resting there for some time already, waiting. A lamp glowed nearby, its light low and unfocused. It did not demand attention. It simply existed, spreading a soft warmth across the walls and furniture, allowing shadows to gather where they pleased. Nothing was sharply defined. Everything felt slightly softened, edges blurred just enough to be kind. Outside, the rain continued. It traced slow, wandering paths down the glass, lines forming, merging, separating again. Some drops moved quickly, others paused, collecting for a moment before continuing their journey downward. There was no pattern to follow, no need to track their movement. Watching was optional. Listening was enough. The sound of rain became a background presence, steady and reassuring, like a familiar voice speaking quietly in another room. Somewhere beyond the window, the world moved on, but here it felt distant, muted. Cars passed occasionally, their sound softened by water and air, rising briefly and then fading away. Each sound dissolved naturally, leaving no trace behind. Inside, nothing asked to be done. There was no list waiting, no task calling for attention. The evening had already decided its purpose, and that purpose was rest. A blanket lay nearby, thick and comfortable. When it was drawn closer, it settled easily, its weight gentle, familiar. It did not press or constrain. It simply rested, offering warmth without effort, as though it understood exactly how much was needed. As the body settled, breathing changed on its own. The breath grew slower, deeper, without instruction. Each inhale arrived easily, filling the chest and abdomen in a smooth, unbroken way. Each exhale followed naturally, releasing warmth and tension back into the quiet of the room. There was nothing to control. The rain outside seemed to match this rhythm, falling steadily, evenly, without urgency. It did not rush toward an end. It had all the time it needed. With each passing moment, the day loosened its hold. Thoughts that had once felt important began to drift, not pushed away, just gently set aside. They floated past like reflections on water, visible for a moment, then gone. There was no need to follow them. They knew how to leave on their own. The room felt enclosed in the best possible way. Walls did not confine here. They protected. They held the warmth in place, kept the quiet from escaping. The outside world remained outside, doing whatever it needed to do, while this space remained unchanged, calm, undisturbed. The rain grew slightly heavier for a while, then softened again, as though testing different rhythms. Each variation added texture without breaking the calm. It was easy to imagine the sound continuing for hours, perhaps all night, washing the world clean again and again. Time felt different now. Minutes no longer stacked themselves neatly. The sense of sequence faded. There was only this moment, and then the next one, each blending gently into the other, like colours dissolving into twilight. The body responded to this shift without effort. Muscles relaxed in places that hadn't been noticed before. The jaw softened, the shoulders settled lower. The space behind the eyes grew heavy and calm, as though the mind itself was finding a more comfortable position. There was no reason to stay alert. Nothing unexpected was coming. Nothing needed to be monitored or prepared for. The evening had already declared itself safe, predictable, kind. The rain continued its steady work. It tapped lightly against the roof, the pavement, the leaves outside. Each sound was absorbed into the whole, never standing alone, never demanding attention. Even silence felt full here, filled with gentle sound and warmth. A sense of ease spread slowly, evenly. Not excitement, not emotion, just a quiet acceptance of comfort, of stillness, of having arrived exactly where one was meant to be. The mind grew quieter, not empty, just spacious. Thoughts had room to drift without colliding. Awareness widened and softened, resting lightly on sensation rather than analysis. The glow of the lamp seemed warmer now, more distant, as though seen through a layer of calm. Its light did not flicker or change. It simply remained, steady and reliable. The rain outside blurred the edges of the world. Buildings, trees, and streets lost their sharp outlines, blending together into shapes and movement rather than detail. It became impossible to tell where one thing ended and another began, and that uncertainty felt soothing rather than unsettling. Inside, the body mirrored this softness. Boundaries loosened, tension dissolved, the sense of effort faded. There was nothing to hold, nothing to brace against. The evening deepened gradually, without announcement. The sky outside darkened by degrees so subtle they were barely noticed. Colours shifted quietly, blue into charcoal, grey into shadow. The change required no attention. It happened whether it was observed or not. The rain remained. It had become part of the night now, inseparable from it. Its sound no longer stood out. It blended completely into the background, like breath or heartbeat, present, constant, reassuring. With each breath, the body sank further into comfort. The surface beneath felt supportive, steady. It carried weight easily, without resistance. There was no need to adjust or move. Everything had already found its place. The mind, too, settled deeper. Awareness narrowed gently, focusing less on the outside world and more on simple sensation. Warmth, sound, softness. Thoughts that arose did so slowly, lazily, and then drifted away again, unfinished and unimportant. Nothing needed to be concluded. Nothing needed to be remembered. The rain continued to fall, patient and calm, washing the day away. And here, inside this quiet space, wrapped in warmth and sound, the evening opened fully, offering rest without expectation, inviting stillness without effort. There was nowhere else to go. There was nothing else to be. Only the rain, only the warmth, only this gentle beginning. The rain had settled into itself now. What began as individual drops had become a continuous presence, a soft, layered sound that no longer rose or fell in volume, but simply was. It filled the space outside the window evenly, without interruption, without emphasis, as though it had found its most comfortable rhythm and intended to remain there for the rest of the night. Inside, the room felt unchanged. The warmth remained steady, unremarkable in the best possible way. It no longer registered as something to notice. It was simply part of the air, part of the stillness, part of the body's awareness as it rested. The lamp continued to glow quietly. Its light no longer seemed to originate from a single point. Instead, it felt diffused, spread gently across the room, resting rather than shining. Shadows softened further, losing definition, blending into one another until the space felt more like a single, continuous shape than a collection of objects. There was nothing to focus on. Nothing needed to be named. The rain outside blurred the world into motion and sound, and inside, that same softness began to settle into the body. Breathing remained slow and even. Each breath arrived without effort, and each release followed naturally, carrying with it any remaining tightness, any last fragments of the day. The rhythm was unforced, uncounted, guided entirely by comfort. With every breath, the body felt heavier, not weighed down, supported, as though gravity itself had softened, allowing the body to sink gently into the surface beneath it, held securely without pressure. Muscles that had been active for hours began to rest completely, releasing their need to stay ready. The rain continued, patient and consistent. Its sound no longer invited listening. It simply existed, forming a soft boundary around the room, a kind of auditory shelter. Beyond it, the outside world faded further, becoming less distinct, less relevant. Time slipped quietly into the background. Minutes passed without marking themselves. There was no sense of moving forward or backward, only a slow unfolding of the present moment. The concept of later lost its meaning here. Everything that mattered was already happening. Thoughts slowed. When they appeared, they did so gently, without urgency. They drifted through awareness like leaves floating on water, touching briefly, then moving on. There was no need to follow them, no reason to finish them. They knew how to leave. The space behind the eyes grew heavy and calm. Awareness rested there for a moment, noticing the sensation of weight, of softness, of release. Even the act of noticing felt optional. Attention could wander freely, settling wherever it felt most comfortable. The room seemed to grow quieter, though the rain had not changed. It was the mind that had quieted, allowing sound to blend smoothly into the background. What once might have stood out now felt distant, muffled, almost internal. The outside world continued its work unnoticed. Street lights reflected faintly on wet pavement. Trees shifted slightly in the damp air, but none of it asked to be acknowledged. The room remained the centre of experience, steady and enclosed. The blanket's warmth felt deeper now, not just on the skin, but throughout the body, spreading gradually, evenly. It reached the shoulders, the arms, the legs, settling into each place without haste, as though warmth itself was taking its time. The rain outside mirrored this pace. It did not rush toward an ending. It did not build toward anything. It simply continued, moment after moment, offering a constant reminder that nothing needed to change. The mind accepted this easily. There was a sense of permission here, permission to let go, to stop monitoring, to stop anticipating. The evening did not require participation. It invited surrender. With each passing moment, awareness narrowed slightly. The edges of the room softened further, objects losing their distinct presence. What remained were sensations rather than things, warmth rather than furniture, sound rather than weather, comfort rather than position. The body felt increasingly still. Small movements became unnecessary. Even the idea of shifting or adjusting felt distant, irrelevant. Everything had already settled into the most comfortable arrangement possible. The rain sound deepened subtly, becoming richer, fuller. Not louder, just more complete. It filled the space evenly, leaving no gaps for silence to intrude. Silence, when it appeared, felt dense and supportive rather than empty. Breathing slowed again. Each inhale felt longer, each exhale more complete. The space between breaths widened slightly, creating gentle pauses where nothing happened at all. Those pauses felt especially restful, like small moments of floating. Thoughts grew less defined. Instead of forming words or images, they appeared as impressions, sensations, half-formed ideas that dissolved before becoming clear. The mind no longer insisted on clarity. It was content with softness. The rain outside washed steadily against the night. Its presence felt almost internal now, as though the sound were coming from within the room itself or from within the body. The boundary between inside and outside blurred, just as the edges of awareness had. There was no reason to hold on to anything, no reason to remember the sequence of the day or anticipate what might come next. The evening had absorbed all of that, leaving only calm. The lamp's glow seemed dimmer now, though it had not changed. It felt farther away, as though seen through layers of relaxation. Light and shadow merged into a gentle haze, comforting rather than disorienting. The body continued to sink, not falling, settling. Each part found its place, supported fully, held without effort. The sensation of contact with the surface beneath grew broader, more diffuse, as though the body were spreading out into comfort. The rain continued, unwavering. It did not pause. It did not surprise. Its consistency became a kind of reassurance, a reminder that this quiet would last, that there was no need to stay alert. Awareness drifted gently inward. The sounds of the room, the rain, the distant world all blended into a single, continuous presence. Nothing stood apart. Everything belonged. The mind rested within this sameness. Differences between moments softened. The sense of progression faded. There was only a slow, gentle continuation, like a river moving without landmarks. Breathing remained slow and even. The body responded by relaxing further, letting go of the last small tensions that lingered in unnoticed places. The face softened, the hands relaxed. The legs grew heavier, more still. The rain outside seemed to soften slightly, though it continued steadily. Perhaps it was only perception changing, or perhaps the night itself was settling deeper. Either way, the sound felt farther away now, more diffuse, more like a constant presence than a distinct event. The evening deepened. Darkness outside became complete, uninterrupted by motion or light. Inside, the room felt smaller, more contained, wrapped gently in warmth and sound. Nothing needed to be done. Nothing needed to be decided. The mind accepted this fully now, releasing its need to stay active. Awareness drifted freely, unanchored, light and slow. The rain continued to fall, and with it, the evening moved quietly onward, carrying awareness deeper into stillness, preparing gently for the deeper rest that would follow, without hurry, without effort, without end. The rain was still there. It had not stopped, and it did not need to. Its presence had become so familiar now that it no longer felt separate from the quiet inside. The sound existed gently at the edges of awareness, like breath, like a distant memory of movement, steady and unchanging. Inside, attention had turned inward, The room itself no longer required much awareness. Walls, furniture, light, all of it remained, but without calling for recognition. What mattered now was simpler, closer, softer. Warmth. The body was aware of warmth in a broad, diffuse way, not as a specific sensation, but as an overall state of comfort. It wrapped around the shoulders, the chest, the back, settling into every place where tension had once been held. There was no need to adjust. The body had already found the position that felt most natural, most supported. Muscles rested without effort, no longer holding themselves ready for movement. Even the idea of movement felt distant, unnecessary. Breathing continued slowly. Each breath flowed in and out with ease, smooth and unbroken. There was no sharp beginning, no clear ending, just a gentle cycle repeating itself, carrying calm through the body with every pass. Between breaths, there was space, soft, quiet space where nothing happened at all. Those pauses felt especially restful, like floating briefly before the next gentle wave arrived. Nothing intruded there, nothing asked to be filled. The mind noticed this stillness and responded by quieting further. Thoughts no longer formed clearly. Instead, they appeared as faint impressions, fragments without shape, dissolving almost as soon as they arose. There was no need to engage with them. They drifted freely, unobserved, unimportant. Awareness softened. It spread gently through the body, touching each place lightly, without lingering. The chest rose and fell. The abdomen followed. The limbs felt heavy, grounded, supported. The sensation of contact with the surface beneath grew more diffuse. It was no longer clear where the body ended and the support began. The boundary blurred, comfort spreading outward, creating a sense of being held rather than resting. The rain outside continued its steady rhythm. Its sound felt farther away now, as though filtered through layers of calm. It was still present, still constant, but no longer required attention. It blended seamlessly into the background of awareness. The world beyond the room felt very distant, not gone, just irrelevant. Whatever happened there could wait. Whatever needed doing had already been released for the night. Here, there was only this: the breath, the warmth, the quiet. Time no longer felt like something that moved forward. Moments did not line up one after another. Instead, they seemed to overlap, melt into each other, creating a continuous stretch of calm. without edges or divisions. The body responded by sinking further. Heaviness spread gently, evenly, as though gravity itself had become kinder, allowing the body to settle without resistance. Every place that touched the surface beneath felt fully supported, needing no effort to remain there. The face softened completely, the muscles around the eyes released, the jaw rested slightly open or gently closed, whatever felt most natural. The tongue lay comfortably, no longer held in place by habit. The shoulders dropped a little more. Any remaining tension dissolved quietly, without instruction, without awareness of its release. It simply left, no longer needed. The breath slowed again, just slightly. Each inhale felt deeper, fuller. Each exhale longer, more complete. The pauses between breaths lengthened, creating moments of pure stillness where nothing happened at all. Those moments felt safe, comfortable, empty in a way that invited rest rather than attention. The mind drifted, not toward anything specific, just away from sharp focus. Awareness became hazy at the edges, as though seen through a soft veil. Thoughts no longer arrived as words, but as sensations, colours, faint echoes. Even those faded quickly. The rain outside continued, unchanged. Its constancy reinforced the sense that nothing needed to shift. There would be no sudden sounds, no interruptions. The night had already settled into its pattern, and that pattern was gentle. The lamp's glow, once noticeable, now felt distant. Light and shadow merged into a uniform softness. The room existed, but without detail. It was enough to know it was there, holding the warmth, enclosing the quiet. The body felt deeply still. Small sensations that once demanded attention, a shift of fabric, a minor discomfort, no longer registered. Everything had settled into ease. Awareness rested comfortably in the center of the body, not focused on any one point, just present, floating, supported. There was a sense of being contained, held gently within this calm interior space. The breath continued, slow, even, unforced. With each cycle, awareness drifted a little further from sharpness, a little closer to rest. The edges of perception softened further, becoming less defined. The rain outside became more distant still. It was now more like a memory of sound than a sound itself, a reassuring reminder that the world was continuing quietly, predictably, without need for involvement. The mind accepted this completely. There was no desire to think, to plan, to review. Everything important had already been handled. The rest could wait until morning. Here, now, there was only rest. The body remained warm and heavy. The breath flowed. The quiet deepened. Awareness hovered gently, neither fully asleep nor fully awake, suspended comfortably in between, where effort was unnecessary and calm was complete. The rain continued to fall, and inside, the night opened wider, inviting awareness to drift even further, preparing gently for the deepest stillness yet to come. The rain was still falling. It had been there for so long now that it no longer felt like something happening outside. It felt woven into the night itself, part of the quiet fabric that surrounded everything. Its sound was soft, even, uninterrupted, like a gentle breath taken by the world. Inside, the sense of evening had deepened. The room felt smaller now, not because it had changed, but because awareness had drawn inward. The boundaries of the space faded gently, becoming less distinct, less important. What remained was a sense of enclosure, of being held within warmth and stillness. The body was very still. There was no impulse to move, no signal asking for adjustment. Everything had settled into a position that felt natural, effortless, complete. Muscles rested fully, released from their need to hold shape or posture. Breathing was slow and quiet. Each inhale arrived gently, barely noticeable. Each exhale flowed out just as softly, leaving behind a sense of ease. The pauses between breaths stretched slightly longer now, creating moments where nothing moved at all. Those pauses felt deep. They held a quiet that did not feel empty, but full of rest, of safety, of permission to let go. The mind drifted without direction. Thoughts no longer formed clearly enough to follow. Instead, awareness moved in gentle waves, rising slightly, then sinking again, never staying in one place for long. There was no need to anchor it. The rain outside seemed to soften further, not in volume, but in presence. It blended more completely into the background, becoming a constant hush rather than a sound to listen to. It was simply there, steady and reliable. Time felt distant. The idea of hours passing no longer made sense. There was no counting, no sequence. Moments flowed together, overlapping and dissolving, creating a continuous field of calm. The body responded by sinking deeper. Heaviness spread evenly, not pulling downward, but settling inward. The sensation was one of being gently cradled, supported from every side. There was no edge to this support, no point where it stopped. The face felt soft and relaxed. The muscles around the eyes rested completely, lids heavy, unmoving. The brow smoothed. The jaw remained loose, unengaged. Even the small muscles of the scalp released, letting go of any lingering effort. The warmth in the body felt deeper now, not just on the surface, but throughout, a steady, comforting presence that wrapped gently around awareness itself. It was the kind of warmth that invited stillness, that encouraged rest without persuasion. The lamp's glow was barely registered. Light and shadow blended into a gentle darkness that felt safe rather than obscuring. The room existed as a feeling rather than a place, a sense of enclosure rather than a collection of objects. The rain continued, unwavering. Its consistency reinforced the feeling that nothing would interrupt this calm. There would be no sudden changes, no sharp sounds. The night had settled fully, and it intended to remain this way. Awareness drifted further inward. Sensations became simpler, fewer. The breath, the warmth, the gentle weight of the body resting. Everything else faded into the background, no longer necessary. The mind no longer attempted to interpret or organize. It rested comfortably in this softened state, content to let sensations pass through without naming them. There was no need for clarity. Vagueness felt soothing. Between breaths, awareness sometimes hovered in stillness. Those moments felt almost timeless, as though awareness itself had paused. When the next breath arrived, it did so gently, without pulling attention sharply back. The rain outside felt even farther away now. Its presence was more like a memory than an active sound, a reminder that the world continued quietly beyond this space. It did not intrude, it reassured. The body felt deeply calm. Every place that once held tension had released it. There was no resistance left, no effort. Even the idea of effort felt distant, irrelevant. Awareness softened further, edges dissolving. There was no clear boundary between being awake and being asleep. The two states blended gently, overlapping, creating a calm, drifting awareness that did not need to choose between them. The night was complete now. Darkness outside was uninterrupted. Inside, the sense of safety and enclosure was total. There was nowhere else to go, nothing else to attend to. The rain continued to fall, and with each gentle moment, awareness drifted lower, slower, deeper, carried effortlessly toward rest, supported by warmth, sound, and stillness, with no need to arrive anywhere in particular. The rain was still there. It no longer felt like something happening. It felt like something holding, a quiet, steady presence that had been part of the night for so long it no longer needed to be noticed. Inside, everything was very still. There was no movement in the body, no desire to adjust or respond. The surface beneath supported effortlessly, holding weight without pressure, allowing the body to remain exactly as it was. Breathing was slow, so slow it was almost unnoticeable. Each breath flowed in gently, then out again, smooth and quiet. Between breaths, there was a soft pause, a space where nothing happened at all. Those pauses felt deep. They opened into stillness, wide and calm, as though time itself had relaxed. There was no sense of waiting for the next breath. It arrived when it arrived, without urgency. The body felt warm. Not warm in any one place, but everywhere at once. A steady, even warmth that wrapped around awareness, dissolving any remaining sense of effort. Muscles rested completely, no longer holding themselves in shape. The mind had grown very quiet. Thoughts no longer formed. There were no words, no images, no ideas to follow. Awareness floated gently, unanchored, free of direction. The rain outside blended fully into the background. It was no longer separate from silence. Sound and quiet merged into a single, continuous softness that filled the night. There were no sharp edges anywhere. The room no longer felt like a room. It was simply a sense of being held, a feeling of enclosure without boundaries. Light and darkness had lost their distinction, becoming a gentle, neutral space where nothing needed to be seen. Awareness drifted. Sometimes it rose slightly, sometimes it sank, but there was no effort in either direction. It moved the way water moves when undisturbed, slow and natural. The body remained still. The face was soft, the jaw loose, the eyes heavy and unmoving. The space behind the eyes felt deep and calm, as though awareness itself had found a place to rest. breathing continued, in, out, and then the pause. Each pause felt longer than the last, opening into quiet that felt safe, familiar, welcoming. The rain continued its gentle rhythm. It did not change. It did not need to. Its constancy was enough, providing a sense of continuity without demanding attention. The outside world was very far away now. Whatever existed beyond this space no longer mattered. There was no need to remember it, no need to return to it yet. The night had created a pause, and that pause was being honoured. Awareness softened even more. There was no clear sense of the body's outline anymore. Sensation spread, diffused, as though boundaries had gently dissolved. The body felt present, but not separate. The breath grew quieter. Sometimes it seemed to disappear entirely, replaced by stillness. Then it returned, gently, without pulling awareness back. There was no effort to stay awake. There was no effort to fall asleep. Both ideas felt unnecessary. Rest was already happening. The rain outside became a distant hush, not loud enough to notice, not quiet enough to disappear, just enough to remain, a soft reminder that the night continued to hold everything in place. Warmth remained steady. It wrapped around the body like a familiar presence, comforting without needing attention. There was no sensation of cooling or change. Everything felt balanced, stable, complete. Awareness drifted deeper, not downward, not inward, just away from sharpness, away from definition, away from thought. Moments no longer followed one another. They overlapped gently, blending together into a continuous field of rest. There was no beginning to this state and no end. The body rested, the mind rested, even awareness itself seemed to rest, hovering lightly, then fading slightly, then returning without concern. The rain continued. Its presence was now almost imagined rather than heard, like a memory of sound that reassured without intruding. It remained steady, patient, kind. Nothing needed to be held. Nothing needed to be remembered. Nothing needed to be finished. The night was complete, and within this quiet, warm, unchanging space, rest continued gently, naturally, without edges, carrying awareness onward, deeper into stillness, where it could remain as long as it wished.